The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the First Lady of the United States.
This is getting to the good part.
No, my whole screen just went green. Did we lose it again? Did we lose Comcast?
We may have to refresh your browsers because they were there before.
No,
so.
I did that. That's why.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. See. Wait.
I got TV.
All right. Wait. Okay, you're not going to believe this, but I have that outfit.
And citizens of America, tonight,
The citizen
as
of
we
America.
mark the conclusion of our celebration of Black History Month,
What?
we are reminded of our nation's path toward civil rights and the work that still remains to be done. Recent threats.
There you go.
Recent threats targeting Jewish community centers and vandalism of Jewish cemeteries, as well as last week's shooting in Kansas City, remind us that while we may be a nation divided on policies, we are a country that stands united in condemning hate and evil in all of its very ugly forms.
Condemn the hate. It's so interesting because yesterday afternoon, this is so weird. We're very late because there's some massive thing going on with our infrastructure in these United States of America. There's some crazy thing going on, not down on the ground, but up in the cloud, right? I mean, can't build a bridge. So we built it in the cloud, and now the cloud is falling apart. I think it's full of moisture from the tears of the angels who watched that last night and were weeping. I swear to God, that's what's that's what's dragging down the cloud, all the moisture from the weeping tears of the angels. But yeah, okay. So we use Comcast, okay, Comcast Business, and we got the triple play, which means our phone, our television, and our internets all go out at the same time. Oh, so smart to do that. It's not that we had a choice. We don't have a choice. There's no other carrier in the area. We keep, crossing our fingers, hoping we could get, a broadband in here somehow, but it hasn't made its way to our little neck of the woods. It hasn't made its way. They're trying it out, they say, in Miami. And then after Miami, if they like it, then they'll bring it up to Fort Lauderdale and, then maybe up to the Palm Beaches. So, we have to depend on these companies to bring, to bring the show. And it's so weird because yesterday we had a meeting with them. Before the show, we had a meeting with the Comcast business rep. I had him come in. And I said to him, is there no such thing as broadband in your giant conglomerate now? Because we would really like to have that. And he said, well, let me see what you have. And he looked and he said, coax, it's but it's Cat 5. Yeah, well, we I don't know. What did he say? He was a nice enough guy.
Oh, nice guy.
Super nice guy. Kind of cute, right?
Pretty cute.
Pretty cute.
Nice body.
Very nice body. Didn't I say, were you ex-military? Didn't I say?
Yes.
And he said, no, I was almost law enforcement, went to the academy, and then decided it doesn't pay very well. So now I'm a Comcast business rep. So,
I wanted him to arrest me.
yeah, me too. Anything with handcuffs in him would be a good deal, like seriously good. Anyway, so he was just here yesterday, and I knew we were jinxing ourselves, right? Because I said, listen, we haven't had very many problems. We've been doing this about 6 months now, and we only had like one day where we had a glitchy day. But we seem to have figured out all of our difficulties. We put in some backup equipment, on my dime. But the basic service comes from you, and without you, we can't really function. But what I would like is, for you to check out broadband. And he actually said this to us. Well, I won't have an answer for you today or tomorrow, or even in the next week. I'll look into it. We're working on it.
And it's the broadband fiber, the big fiber optics that
Right.
we're looking at. Yeah.
But he knew the price. He doesn't know how or where to get it, but he knew it would cost us another $600 a month. Isn't that interesting? He goes, well, I don't know what it would be, and I don't know where I could get it, and I don't know if they'll even install it for you, but it'd be another $600 a month. I was like, oh my God. But I knew we were cursing ourselves. I knew we were doing something really evil to ourselves. We were doing, we were saying, it's like, we were like knocking wood, you know what I mean? Going, yeah, we haven't any problems. Put it out in the universe. And then all of a sudden today we had this massive outage, and it's not just us or anything. It's like the whole entire area. We went to all of our, we're in a commerce park. We went to all of our neighbors in the commerce park, and every time you'd open their door, they'd all just shake their head no, going, no, it's not just you. Yeah, we can't work either. Which, think about it. I mean, you have all these businesses. Nobody can run a credit card. Nobody can do cash register. Nobody can sell a retail item. Nobody can, like the guy next door, he runs an insurance agency. He can't even look up, these people's policies. He can't, everything just stops dead. It's just like, but Donald Trump, don't worry. He's going to enter into some public-private partnership, to build the infrastructure. Yeah. And when you think about it, Donald Trump is who you would want building your internet, right? He says he doesn't use email. He's not on he just tweets is what he does. 51 lies last night. Do you know that? I mean, I swear to God, it was just the most amazing thing. It was, but he gave, it's so funny. The bar for him, for his decency and for his, tone, this is the word, tone is so low that if Donald Trump manages to stand in front of a group of people and no one yells lock her up, they say he's very presidential. They say he did really well. They say, hey, but you know what it's like? It's almost like he was, like a guy who was going in front of the parole board, sort of like, forget what he's done. Look how nice he cleans up. Do you know what I mean? And they're calling it a success because he lied convincingly and without yelling at too many people, even though the Democrats, the women wore white and wouldn't get up on their feet except to applaud Karen Owen. And, listen, can I just say something? If you weren't moved by that, if for some reason that didn't, affect you emotionally and you immediately said, he's exploiting the dead, you are not a functioning human being, okay? Something is really uber wrong with you. Because any normal human being who watched that woman look up and say to her, to Ryan Owen, whose name is William, by the way. He's a William Jr. They just call him Ryan. But of course, every time Trump said his name, it made me sick. Because he doesn't know him. The family is so super divided. The mission, Trump blamed it on the generals who are the best generals in the world. His generals are, he made the decision to do this thing over dinner with his son-in-law and Steve Bannon. That's just vile. Okay? It's vile. And no, Obama never approved this mission. That's just false. So for him to stand, and this is the thing with this anti-Semitism, and it started out this way. And the second he said this thing about anti-Semitism, because, I collect the little sound bites. I do. I love them. My collection of sound bites is just unbeatable. And, I could play you all three questions about the anti-Semitism. I could play you all three. The first one where he said, but I won. The second one where he said, sit down, I don't like the inference that I'm an anti-Semite, even though the Orthodox Jewish reporter said, no one in my community is calling you an anti-Semite. I've never heard you be called an anti-Semite in my community. And that said, here is what we are concerned about. We are concerned about these bomb threats. At that time, there were only 48 of them. Only 48. So I guess it wasn't ripe for him to say anything in public at in the East Room at a press conference. So he told the guy to sit down and shut up is what he did. I mean, it was just disgusting. And, I know people have very short memories. Let's start with number 2, okay? Let's start with that one. This is the second attempt to ask him the question.
Wait, let's see. I want to find a friendly reporter.
A friendly.
Used to say it was John. Are you a friendly reporter? Watch how friendly he is. Wait, watch how friendly he is.
I don't think our phones are working.
I've been good to you the entire campaign, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
So, first of all, my name is Jake Turks from Ami Magazine, and despite what some of my colleagues may have been reporting, I haven't seen anybody in my community accuse either yourself or anyone on your staff of being anti-Semitic. We understand that you have Jewish grandchildren, you are their Zaydim. However, what we are concerned about, and what we haven't really heard being addressed, is an uptick in anti-Semitism and how the government is planning to take care of it. There's been a report out that 48 bomb threats have been made against Jewish centers all across the country in the last couple of weeks. There are people who are committing anti-Semitic acts or threatening to.
You see, he said he was going to ask a very simple, easy question. And it's not.
It's an important.
It's not a simple question, not a fair question. Okay,
Not
sit
a
down.
fair
I understand
question.
your question. So here's the story, folks. Number one, I am the least anti-Semitic person that you've ever seen in your entire life. Number two, racism, the least racist person. In fact, we did very well
Nobody
relative to
asked
other
you
people
about
running as a Republican. Quiet. See, he lied about he was going to get up and ask a very straight, simple question.
He lied.
So, it's welcome to the world of the media.
Okay, he first of all, just everything is so wrong with that. Donald Trump was standing at the podium. He went scouring this little press crowd to find himself a friendly. Okay? He picked this guy. Now he accuses this guy of being a liar because the guy somehow made a deal with him that we missed in the soundbite where he said, pick me because I'm going to ask you a very easy question. Okay, so that was wrong. And then the second part, the guy said, nobody thinks you're an anti-Semite, sir. Nobody in my community has ever said that. Here's what we are concerned about. And he said, you lied, called him a liar, and told him, and now he's going to tell him to sit down. But the third time that question was asked in the same press conference never got airtime. I don't know why. I guess people tuned out. The media, I don't know, got tired of editing. Not sure why. You didn't realize that this question was asked again. This is the third time, and this time is really creepy because in this particular answer, Donald Trump decides to say, it's not our people, it's your people. It's your people. He actually is insisting that they're false flags and that Jews are calling in bomb threats to their own Jewish centers. Okay, he wasn't there yet on this day. On this day, he said it was Democrats. Yesterday, earlier in the day, before this joint session. No, it's not a State of the Union because he's not president long enough to give a State of the Union. It's a joint session of Congress. That's all it is. But his ratings were down too. I'll go over it. But okay, so the third time he was asked, he decided to say it's the Democrats that are doing it.
Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. President, 2 questions, both follow.
No, one question. 2 we can't handle. This one can't handle. 2. Go ahead. Give me the better of your 2.
I'll follow up on my colleague's question about anti-Semitism. It's not about your personality or your beliefs. We're talking about a rise in anti-Semitism around the country, some of it by supporters in your name. What can you do?
And some of it, and can I be honest with you? And this has to do with racism and horrible things that are put up. Some of it written by our opponents. You do know that. Do you understand that?
No.
You don't think anybody would do a thing like that. Some of the signs you'll see are not put up by the people that love or like Donald Trump. They're put up by the other side. And you think it's like playing it straight? No. But you have some of those signs, and some of that anger is caused by the other side. They'll do signs and they'll do drawings that are inappropriate. It won't be my people. It will be the people on the other side to anger people like you.
Okay. Oh, the TV just came back. All right. Let me mute that. Okay, so this was 2 weeks ago. This was at that press conference in the East Room. That was the third try, and he blames it on the Democrats. Yesterday, what you may not know is yesterday, before the joint session, Jeff Sessions was up on, hosting all the attorney generals from around the country. Yeah, well, the Pennsylvania Attorney General, his name is Josh Shapiro. And Josh Shapiro got a little brief, audience with the king, with the Trump, and he brought up this thing with the synagogues and and the Jewish centers and the community centers, and he said, "When are you going to say something about this? This is really bad. There are so many, bomb threats being called in. Children are being, walked out of their own after school thing or their classrooms, because of these bomb threats. When are you going to stand up and say something? And please stop saying, who it is. You're the president of all Americans. Just say something about people being prosecuted, or say something that we're gonna start a task, something to look into this rise in anti-Semitism, which has been documented by the Southern Poverty Law Center, the 80% rise in militia groups, and terror activities on Muslim immigrants, for instance. Okay, so the Pennsylvania attorney, Josh Shapiro, went into the president. And when he came out, he gave an interview to a couple of the reporters that were there. And Anna Orso, she reported that the Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro is among the state attorneys general who met with President Trump this morning in Washington. Shapiro says he brought up the bomb threats and the Jewish cemetery desecration over the last few days with Donald Trump. Shapiro said Trump indicated that the threats at the Jewish community centers may have come from the reverse, or to make others look bad. Shapiro stopped short of saying Trump thinks his supporters are being framed for bomb threats, but he seems to think that's what Trump meant. So Trump was telling, right up until this stupid, lie last night about how all the ugly forms of anti-Semitism and racism, and it's the end of Black History Month, everybody. What did he do for Black History Month? Did Reince Priebus do some sort of a poetry slam or something in the way? How did they conclude? Did they let people touch his hair? I don't know. How did they conclude Black History Month in the White House? But this thing about anti-Semitism, yesterday afternoon he was meeting with attorneys general, and also Anthony Scaramucci, who is Trump's pick to be the director of White House Office of Public Liaison and Intergovernmental Affairs. He also suggested that the bomb threats were being called in by Democrats. He was tweeting yesterday, and he pointed to a fake news story, Breitbart. He pointed to a fake news story with, what's his name, O'Keefe. He actually retweeted this. O'Keefe reveals bird dogging to incite violence. Democrats have used trained provocateurs to instigate violence at Republican events nationwide through a tactic called bird dogging, Breitbart.com. And then Scaramucci starts tweeting that out and says that, this is what's going on with the Jewish community centers. I mean, this is unbelievable. So this is how the speech started last night. And quite frankly, I was so not disappointed. I mean, you don't expect much from this guy. You really don't. You never know what to expect. But I will tell you also that yesterday afternoon he had a meeting where he said that he was going to tell Congress what his comprehensive immigration plan looked like, that he was interested in comprehensive immigration reform. He said nothing about comprehensive immigration reform. In fact, last night he said something completely different. He said he was going to set up some office called Voice, Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement. They couldn't even come up with a decent acronym. I mean, they should call it Slimeballs Espousing Xenophobia or SEX, because that sells. Do you know what I mean? Something like this. Or Reactionaries Attacking Certain Immigrant Subgroups Task Force, or Racist. Do you know what I mean? So he said he was going to start this this Voice thing, and every week he's going to put a list of crimes committed by immigrants. Now, you know immigrants are less likely to commit crime than native-born Americans are. You know that, right? You're more likely to get shot by a toddler than you are to get shot by an immigrant in this country. It's just so unbelievable. And I got to say, Homeland Security always sounded like a fascist thing, didn't it? Even when Bush started it. I mean, we just invented it. Homeland Security, the motherland, the fatherland. And now Trump is making it live up to its name, because this is what's going to happen. We're going to have Voice, and they're going to publish the victims of all those vicious immigrants. You get shot by a 6-year-old using daddy's gun before you're gonna, it's so unbelievable. This thing is so disgusting. I can't even stand it. And so then this is here's 2 minutes of it. Okay.
To bring back millions of jobs.
Millions.
Protecting our workers also means reforming our system of legal immigration. The current outdated system depresses wages for our poorest workers and puts great pressure on taxpayers. Nations around the world, like Canada, Australia, and many others, have a merit-based immigration system.
Okay. Can I just tell you something? He's selling snake oil to the Rust Belt, and this is the sad thing, okay? He keeps telling them immigrants are your problem. Immigrants are the ones who took your damn jobs. Immigrants? Really? You think immigrants displaced the coal miners? Do you think that's what happened? Do you really think that? Do you think that immigrants who are, doing your lawn replaced all these white guys that were out there doing other people's lawns? You really think that happened? Let me tell you something. What Donald Trump is very good is voicing anger. That's what he's good at doing. He's fabulous at making people feel insecure and telling you that your lot in life is terrible and telling you who to blame for it. But he always tells you to blame the wrong thing. Okay? He's giving you false hope that if we deport, everybody in this country that came here over the Mexican border, somehow your wages will go up. It's ridiculous. You know what made factory work almost, we've had a 17% increase in manufacturing before he even came in. But there are a couple things that are displacing manufacturing jobs. Okay, one is automation. That's just a fact. That is just a fact. Automation has replaced so many people that used to work on the line. The second thing is you're looking down at the lowest paid workers. Look up at the highest paid workers. The highest paid workers. Or the people with sciencey skills or tech skills or internet skills or software skills and things like that. Engineering. Okay, those people are being allowed to come into our country. In fact, they're invited in. They're invited into our country by our country, and they come in on H-1B visas. Those H-1B visas are for some of the highest skilled workers that the world has produced. Not everyone, but a lot of them. And it's because, like I said, there's 5 million job openings in this country that Americans cannot fill. 5 million. And so they're being filled, doctors and engineers and all kinds of people. You know how many H-1B, the Department of State, Rex Tillerson now, they issue worker visas. There are 16 types. Besides for the H-1B, there are 16 types of work-eligible visas. You know how many people have been given visas to work in this country since 2007? Take a guess. 10 million? 20, 30, 40 million, 50 million, 70 million people. 70 million people. Now, why he's pitting Latinos against, blacks last night and introducing, black victims of brown crime, you can draw your own conclusion. But the trouble with manufacturing is automation. And the problem with not being able to fill 5 million jobs simply points to the fact that people need to get higher education. People need better education.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
We did it, you bastards! We're live! And it only took 2 years. Okay. All right. So we're back, we're live, and you're there, and we're here, and ain't that great? Now let me just tell you that if you want to listen whenever and wherever you'd like to listen, just go to randyrhodes.com, click on podcasts and swag, and get your podcast commercial-free, on demand, on any device. randyrhodes.com. Open all day, every day.
To speak to Randy, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
Randy Rhodes Air Force.
Now that Trump's moved into the White House, I know. You could see he wasted no time. He went to work for his ultra-wealthy pals. He's making fundamental economic changes that are going to affect your money and your retirement. He's chipping away at banking regulations. You know he's going after Dodd-Frank, and that unwinds the fiduciary rule. That's a rule that keeps your money safe from deceptive financial practices. Like I said before, this administration is so awful. They are so greedy. And that's why now, more than ever, is the best time to diversify your retirement portfolio like I did. Gold's low correlation with stocks and bonds can help you in times of uncertainty. Call my friends at ITM Trading. Get a free gold kit. Learn why gold survives every government, every currency, every economic crisis. Call ITM today at 1-888-OWN-GOLD for guidance from their precious metals experts. They've helped thousands of people just like me buy gold and silver coins and bars, and they can help you too. 1-888-OWN-GOLD. Call 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
On Tuesday night, the 45th President of the United States delivered his first speech to a joint session of Congress. It wasn't officially a State of the Union, as the first one delivered by a president never is, but this was not the place for exaggerations or untruths. And although no Democrat in the chamber shouted at the new president, as Republican Representative Joe Wilson did to President Obama in 2009, Trump's maiden turn at that podium did include some false claims. So, with an assist from the Washington Post's fact checkers, here are some of the Yeah.
We have begun to drain the swamp of government corruption by imposing a 5-year ban on lobbying by executive branch officials and a lifetime ban on becoming lobbyists for a foreign government.
Trump did sign an order that he said would result in a lifetime ban on administration officials lobbying for foreign governments. But his 5-year ban on lobbying doesn't extend to congressional officials, as he originally promised, and it applies only to lobbying one's former agency, not becoming a lobbyist. Trump actually weakened some of the language from similar bans under Obama and W and reduced the level of transparency.
We've defended the borders of other nations while leaving our own borders wide open for anyone to cross and for drugs to pour in at a now unprecedented rate.
No. The amount of marijuana seized at the border continues to decline, as does the amount of cocaine, although heroin and methamphetamine seizures have increased in recent years. Meanwhile, illegal immigration flows across the southern border in 2015 were at the lowest level since 1972, except for 2011.
We've saved taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars by bringing down the price of fantastic, and it is a fantastic, new F-35 jet fighter. And we'll be saving billions more on contracts all across our government.
Trump once again takes credit for the lowered cost of the F-35 program. The Pentagon had announced cost reductions of roughly $600 million before Trump began meeting with Lockheed Martin's chief executive. Sometimes Trump says he saved $600 million, other times $700 million. What's $100 million among friends? The Washington Post has previously awarded 4 Pinocchios to this claim, yet he claimed it again.
America has spent approximately $6 trillion in the Middle East. All the while our infrastructure at home is crumbling. With this $6 trillion, we could have rebuilt our country twice.
Trump often incorrectly claims that the U.S. spent $6 trillion on the wars in the Middle East, and here he uses it in a particularly misleading way. The wars in Iraq, in the Middle East, and Afghanistan in South Asia together cost about $1.6 trillion from 2001 to 2014. The $6 trillion figure adds in estimates of future spending, such as interest on the debt and veterans care for the next 3 decades. Trump says that this money, not yet spent, could have rebuilt the U.S. economy.
Go back to the house. I hear the woman smile. Preaching and crying. Tell me that I'm lying about a job.
We have cleared the way for the construction of the Keystone and Dakota Access pipelines, thereby creating tens of thousands of jobs. And I've issued a new directive that new American pipelines be made with American steel.
Yeah, a 2014 State Department environmental review estimated the Keystone would support 42,000 temporary jobs over its 2-year construction period, about 3,900 of them in construction, the rest in indirect support jobs, such as food service. It's estimated the Keystone would create about 35 permanent jobs. As for the steel, TransCanada said in 2013 that it had already purchased all of the steel pipe it needed for the Keystone XL, with the rest coming from a Russian-owned plant in Canada, Italy, and India. Experts say the plant in Arkansas is the only one in the U.S. that could build the pipe, and it gets its steel from India. In all fairness, Trump did start off the speech on the right note, saying what he should have said many times during his first tumultuous month in office. It's about time.
Tonight, as we mark the conclusion of our celebration of Black History Month, we are reminded of our nation's path toward civil rights and the work that still remains to be done. Recent threats targeting Jewish community centers and vandalism of Jewish cemeteries, as well as last week's shooting in Kansas City, remind us that while we may be a nation divided on policies, we are a country that stands united in condemning hate and evil in all of its very ugly forms.
And that's today's dose of Nicole Sandler's What's News. Hear Nicole's show Tuesday through Friday from 3 to 4 Eastern at NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Mary had a little lamb.
The false. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I'm going to bring back millions of jobs. Protecting our workers also means reforming our system of legal immigration. The current outdated system depresses wages for our poorest workers and puts great pressure on taxpayers. Nations around the world, like Canada, Australia, and many others, have a merit-based immigration system. It's a basic principle that those seeking to enter a country ought to be able to support themselves financially. Yet in America, we do not enforce this rule, straining the very public resources that our poorest citizens rely upon. According to the National Academy of Sciences, our current immigration system costs American taxpayers many billions of dollars a year.
Many.
Switching away from this current system of lower-skilled immigration and instead adopting a merit-based system, we will have so many more benefits. It will save countless dollars, raise workers' wages, and help struggling families, including immigrant families, enter the middle class. And they will do it quickly, and they will be very, very happy indeed.
Okay, we already have that. You know what? We already have that. We have merit-based immigration, and 70 million people immigrants have come through this country since 2007 on these merit-based H-1B and other visa programs, student visa programs, work visa programs, science visa programs. We have them, and they're run out of the State Department. There's a whole visa section in the State Department. Big business knows this. Microsoft knows this. Disney knew it. Everybody that, has a lobbyist knows that they can go to the State Department and they can get H-1B visas or student visas or whatever kind of visa that they, can get in massive amounts of visas. Remember what happened at Disney? 850 people had to train immigrants who were here on H-1B visas to do their jobs. What? And then they got fired. Like Disney didn't make enough money, but that, so it's not the bottom. It's not people that cut your lawn. It's not people who work in food service that are taking away your jobs. It's exactly what he's advocating more of there. It's the merit system, the H-1B visa system. That is like an amazing section in the, listen, I've seen people hire people to lobby that particular part of the State Department to get massive amounts of visas for this company or that company. So, and then you've got your student visas, which aren't supposed to be work visas, but they are visas. And, obviously, this is the crazy part. We don't have a way to track H-1B workers in the United States at any one time. The information about the length of their stay is unknown. And that's a lot of what we get here. We get a lot of people overstaying their visas, but they came in here on a merit-based visa. So he's advocating more of that. Why? Because that's what big business wants. That's what big business wants. Now, if you wanted to say you didn't want anybody who didn't have documentation working anywhere, that's fine. Then we should do the E-Verify system. But we don't. We don't. You know why? Because the businesses that hire agricultural workers and people that do the jobs that you don't want to do, they don't want to participate in it. But the H-1B visa system, that's how the 9/11 hijackers got here. Just saying. They arrived on worker visas. They were here with current visas. But Donald Trump wants you to look down on people. He always wants you to look down. He always wants an easy answer for, something that isn't so straightforward and simple, like, the merit visa program that we do have. The number of guest workers in this country is nearly impossible to track. And by guest workers, I mean visa holders. Visa holders. So individuals can't be readily tracked, and they're not assigned unique identifiers that allow to track them. And that's why most people in this country who are here without documents are here on visa overstays. I tell you, they don't come over the border. They come on airplanes. I keep telling you this. And they come here legally. Then they overstay their visas, and we can't figure out where they are. And he's advocating for more of this. More of it. I don't know. I do know why he does it. He does it for the simple-minded. He does it for, but, you've got companies that posted $7.5 billion worth of profits, like Disney. In 2014, Disney posted $7.5 billion in profit. And that was 1 month after they laid off 850 workers, 850, because, and that was Orlando, Florida, here in Florida, and that was also in Anaheim, California. And an associate professor of public policy at Howard University and the author of Outsourcing America, What's Behind Our National Crisis and How We Can Reclaim American Jobs, little wordy. He said it's corporate goals. This is what they're doing. The stakeholders of our companies used to include the workers. They had a stake in the company. The community had a stake in the company. The country had a stake in the company. But now the focus of big business is on shareholder value. So it's all about increasing profits. And so even if you have somebody $7.5 billion worth of profits, there's still the shares can profit margin could always go up if you just slash workers and bring in, people that'll do it for half of what an American will do it on an H-1B visa. It's cheap labor and it's just a phone call away. I mean, they call themselves consulting firms, staffing firms, employment companies, but the people in this industry and the people at the State Department, they call them body shops. Body shops. HCL Global Systems, Tata Consultancy Services, Satyam, Infosys, Accenture, Cognizant, IBM outfits. They facilitate the process of replacing Americans with foreign workers. 6 of those firms I just named are based in India. And so an attorney at Visa Pro teaches a human resource person how to use an H-1B visa to cut costs with foreign nationals. And the really sad part is a lot of times these foreign nationals are being told over there, go to America and you'll get paid top dollar for all these skill sets that you have, because, Americans don't have these skill sets and they're willing to pay extra for you. Then these people do come over here. They're offered $25,000 to do the job that somebody here was making $50,000, $60,000 doing. And then they go and they find out the cost of living here isn't as cheap as it was back home. So they want to complain. They go, well, listen, it was bait and switch. You told me that you were going to pay me, X amount of dollars. I get here and I look at my paycheck and it's $25,000 a year. And the cost of living here is 8 times what it was back home. Well, guess what? They don't file complaints, because they're afraid of reprisals, and they're afraid that they'll be removed from the country if they complain. And also, the investigations into wrongdoings of these visa violations, that employers are making, not individuals, but the employers are doing it. It takes years. You have to have an indictment by a grand jury before the Department of Justice will confirm or deny any of these allegations. So none of this gets reported. But, let's just blame people that are, this crazy epidemic that we don't have of border jumping. We don't have this epidemic. It isn't occurring. I mean, this man has solutions to problems we don't have, and no solutions to the problems we do have. Did you hear one single plan yesterday in that joint session of what he's going to replace Obamacare with? Did you hear one single thing about how how this merit-based immigration system would work? Because we already have one, and I just told you what's wrong with it. Did he talk anything about automation and how we have to be ready for it, and it's going to replace jobs, and people need to retrain, and so we're going to make this massive investment in free college tuition so people can retrain themselves? Hell no. Nothing. You didn't hear anything. He didn't even talk about his mass deportations. And by the way, people are being deported who jaywalking. Do you know what I mean? This is like because when they go to the house of somebody who is identified as, it could be somebody that's identified as, somebody that got caught with a marijuana cigarette or something like this. But when they go to that house to check on that person, the new ICE thing, they're allowed to ask anybody that lives in that house for papers. Anybody. And you don't have to show it. You don't have to answer any of their questions. You can keep on asking for a lawyer. You don't even have to answer your door. And people from rights groups are trying to get this message out. But that's how they're sweeping up all these people. And it's such a misguided roundup of the wrong people. Round up these corporations that are, lobbying the State Department for these low-cost, workers to come in and replace American workers. Anyway, so let me just go through all the crap he said yesterday, okay? He said, we have begun to drain the swamp of government corruption by imposing a 5-year ban on lobbying by the executive branch officials and a lifetime ban on becoming lobbyists for a foreign government. Sounds like he did something, but he didn't do anything. His 5-year ban on lobbying is less than what we had. Okay, Trump promised to extend the ban to congressional officials, people who work in Congress, staffers, etc. But he didn't do that. The 5-year ban only applies to lobbying your former agency, period. You can become a lobbyist. You can leave first of all, it's only the White House. So now you can leave the White House, and let's say you worked in, give me a department in the White House. Let's say you worked in communications. You can go be a lobbyist on K Street. You just can't lobby the communications shop in the White House. But there's no ban against you becoming a lobbyist. He actually weakened some of the language that we had. Similar bans under Barack Obama, George W. Bush. And he reduced the level of transparency, so you will never know if any of these things actually happen if people walk through the revolving door. Doesn't apply to Congress. Doesn't apply to all it is you cannot lobby your own agency within the White House for 5 years after you leave the White House. But you can go to K Street and you can take a job as a lobbyist. So that was a lie. Then he said, we've defended the borders of other nations. This one really kills me because he says this one all the time. We've defended the borders of other nations while leaving our own borders wide open for anyone to cross and for drugs to pour in at a now unprecedented rate. Okay. The amount of marijuana seized at the border continues to decline. It's probably because more states have legalized marijuana for recreational and medical use. So let's look at 2016. You had 1.3 million pounds of marijuana seized. The year before they legalized it, it was 1.5 million. That's lower than the peak of marijuana smuggling, which was 4 million pounds in 2009. That's according to Customs and Border Protection's own data. The amount of cocaine seized at the border in fiscal 2016, 5,473 pounds, was half the amount that was seized in the previous year. Here's what is coming in. And this is our problem. Heroin and methamphetamine. The seizures of heroin and methamphetamine increased in recent years. And that's probably because we cracked down on meth labs here in the United States, by putting on shows like Breaking Bad. And heroin. Now, why is the demand for heroin so high in this country? I think it has something to do with Big Pharma. I think it has something to do with oxycodone being prescribed off-label oxycodone used to be a hospice drug, an end-of-life drug. It was a drug that was given as you were trying, if you went to hospice, to gracefully exit from this life in the least amount of pain, to take time to say goodbye to the people that you love, to write your memoirs or to leave whatever you wanted, to the people you loved, with the help of angels who work in hospice, who would keep you out of pain with drugs like that. Fentanyl and oxycodone and roxycodone and all those pills. Those were end-of-life hospice drugs. And then all of a sudden, Purdue Pharma decided, hey, let them prescribe it off-label. Label was hospice. Off-label is anything from, you're having a root canal? Root canal doesn't freaking hurt. Okay? Can I tell you that? It doesn't hurt. They pump you up with lidocaine, and they do their thing, and then they take the root out, and there's no pain afterwards because the nerves are gone. It's so ridiculous. But you'll walk out of there with Vicodin. You'll walk out of there with Lortab. You'll walk out of there with something, right? You'll walk out of there with Now, this is the problem, and this is why we have such a big heroin epidemic. Obamacare for the first time covers rehabilitation, covers rehab. So. And there's also evidence that marijuana, not that I smoke, I don't like it. I really don't. I've said this a million times. I don't know why I would smoke something or take something or eat something that would make me hungrier and more tired than I already am. I'm always hungry. I could sleep, I'm not a napper, but when it's bedtime, I'm like ready. I'm so ready. So I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. But there is evidence that marijuana actually helps people transition from harder drugs like heroin instead of the other way around. Marijuana is a gateway drug? No, oxycodone is a gateway drug. You want to see heroin usage in grown-ups? I don't think it was because they smoked a joint when they were 13 or 16. I think they're on heroin because they were given oxycodone 2 years ago and then the prescription wouldn't be renewed. So they switched to heroin, which was cheaper. Well, marijuana seems to hold some promise for people who are on harder drugs to transition off. But of course, they want to go after the marijuana, and they don't want to talk about the real problem, which is Big Pharma. They don't. But, I swear to God, the idea that if you can't do drug interdiction on the border, if you can't do that with dogs and what, the only other solution seems to me would be to make that trade worthless. And by that I mean legalize the damn heroin.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit randyrhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
You want big protein, big flavor, big packs, and little carbs? Of course you do. That's what I want. That's why my favorite snack is jerky, but you can't get the best stuff at the gas station. You can't even get it at the supermarket. You have to order it online, and you have to do it from the best purveyors of jerky. And the best purveyors of jerky that I found is Herky Jerky, the official snack of the Randi Rhodes Air Force. It comes in elk, buffalo, beef, and bacon. Oh yes, bacon. Hot, mild, or 14 other incredible flavors, and now $5 off of $30 or more with promo code Valentine. Now the bacon, it's a slab. You can put it on BLTs. You can use it in salads or just munch it right out of the bag. I've shopped jerky everywhere, from supermarkets to gourmet. But jerky shops, they don't hold a candle to Herky Jerky. It is absolutely the best I've found. And this is not a 3-ounce frou-frou bag that you find in those gourmet shops. These are big, beautiful, nearly 1-pound bags of fresh, delicious, perfectly spiced jerky that bites and chews like homemade jerky should. So go to herkyjerky.com. Get $5 off your $30 or more purchase with promo code Valentine. $5 off 30 with promo code Valentine.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1936. That was the day Hoover Dam was formally turned over to the federal government. It was a massive undertaking. Approved by the Coolidge administration in 1928, work began to divert and then dam the Colorado River in 1931, creating Lake Mead. Thousands of unemployed flocked to the area in search of jobs. More than 21,000 were employed over the course of 5 years, with as many as 5,200 working on any given day. Workers were paid on average of 50 cents an hour, with higher pay for skilled work. Governmental hiring terms included preference to veterans and no hiring of Asians. The Colored Citizens Labor and Protective Association of Las Vegas protested de facto hiring discrimination against blacks. Their eventual representation among the employed totaled an estimated 24 to 30 for the duration of the project. A few Native Americans were hired as high scalers to remove loose rock with jackhammers and dynamite. Estimated fatalities ranged from 96 to over 150. Many died from falls, heat-related illnesses, falling debris, heavy equipment, and carbon monoxide poisoning from tunnel work. The project was rocked by at least 2 documented strikes. The industrial workers of the world attempted to organize there. Workers struck over wage cuts and working conditions. They repeatedly demanded flushing toilets and cold, clean running water, especially in temperatures as high as 120 degrees in the summertime. At the time the Hoover Dam was turned over to the federal government, it was the tallest dam and the largest hydroelectric station in the country. It currently generates about 4 billion kilowatt hours of hydroelectric power for Nevada, Arizona, and California. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on randyrhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or progressivevoices.com now.
Here's some of the other lies he told last night. All right, so the idea that we have, just saying, the idea that if you can see that once we legalized or decriminalized marijuana in certain states for medicinal and recreational use, the amount of marijuana coming over our borders goes down. Because it's not, there's no market for it, right? Because we can grow our own, we can, create these strains that people actually use for things like seizure prevention and things like getting off of the SSRI, reuptake inhibitors. People want to get off those antidepressants, and there's certain strains of pot that help with that. And so anyway, the more that we grow very specific strains for people, even if it's recreational, so people know, now people know the difference between sativa and indica. indica. People understand. If you want to party, you do a little sativa. You want to sleep, you do a little indica. People get it. They understand it. We have, created an industry worth billions of dollars in this country instead of spending millions and billions of dollars on interdiction. So you see how you can make an economy out of something like this. Well, it's the same principle with renewable fuels and oil and gas oligarchs. You make what they own worthless, and we can stop fighting oil wars. And it's the same damn thing, I hate to tell you, with heroin. If you're going to have a pharmaceutical company that's going to prescribe heroin, synthetic heroin, off-label, and then take their prescriptions and say, can't have any more, you're done. People who are addicted are going to search out illegal heroin. What if you made that legal? You wouldn't have heroin pouring over the border because people here would grow poppies. Seriously. And they would make it so that it wasn't poisonous. You know how many overdoses we have with the hot shots because people are they're now the Mexican heroin they're inserting fentanyl into it, which is like, a super, super, super dose of heroin. It's just ridiculous. So there's one idea that they will, and this is what I mean by to say, I want to get into the 21st century so freaking bad with somebody who views progress as a goal. But we don't have that here. Okay. And of course, immigration is way down since 1972. We're at the lowest levels. Okay, so I got to tell you, this is just a ridiculous fight that he's picking with people in Mexico and people coming in from Central America with claims of asylum. What do I mean by that? People say that they're coming because Honduras has become one giant drug ring. Okay, this is how you solve your problems. You make what they have worthless. Anyway. Then he said, since my election, Ford, Fiat, Chrysler, General Motors, Sprint, SoftBank, Lockheed, Intel, Walmart, and many others have announced that they will invest billions of dollars in the United States and will create tens of thousands of new American jobs. Okay, first of all, I got to tell you, a lot of these factories are going to be automated the way that they already are, and so that's not going to really help you. But Ford's decision to abandon the plant, they were going to open up a factory in Mexico, and instead they decided they were going to expand the Michigan plant. Mark Fields, who is the CEO of Ford, said, quote, the reason we are not building the new plant, the primary reason is just demand has gone down for small cars. They want to make electric cars and they're going to make them in Michigan. They can't sell them in Mexico because people don't want the small cars anymore. So anyway, the Fiat Chrysler chief executive, Sergio Marchionne, he said his company's plan to invest $1 billion for a factory in Michigan had been in the works for more than a year, had nothing to do with Trump. You can't tell me it's fake news. These are the CEOs of these companies that, by the way, they don't say anything that's fake because their stockholders depend on their transparency and honesty about their new plans for the next year when they make decisions and when they release their annual reviews to the stockholders. So it can't be fake because it's happened. The only weirdo guy that came here with a big check was this Japanese guy from SoftBank. Remember him? Came and he did a little photo op, a little song and dance pony show with Trump at Trump Tower. Yeah, this guy wants to buy all of our telecommunication. He wants to buy Sprint. He wants to merge it with the one that I forget which one he owns already. It could be, which one? Oh. You don't know. Just shout any incoherent crap out. It's fine. But I think he wants to, I think it's Sprint. So, so he's the only one, okay? He's the only one. But all these other factory plans and everything else, they were all in the works way, way, way before Donald Trump was Donald Trump. Well, he's always been Donald Trump, but I mean before he was the Republican nominee. So he claims credit for other people's decisions that favor his rhetoric, and yet it never pans out. It just doesn't. This is also like, the sadness of this woman last night, Karen Owens, the sadness of her. It just, if it didn't move you, something is wrong with you, or you've never loved somebody in your life the way that, she loved her husband. But to say that they got valuable intelligence when obviously no one believes that is just, the intelligence communities have spoken out and they said what the goal of that mission was, and it had absolutely nothing to do with grabbing anything. It had to do with finding a guy. They were looking for a guy, and they missed, and somebody alerted the fighters in the area, and I think it was Trump himself, and this is why. On the 26th of January, Donald Trump signed off at dinner with his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. He was sitting at dinner with Jared Kushner, Steve Bannon, and General Mattis. That's who was at dinner. And I guess General Mattis must have said to him, we do have this operation you could sign off on. Obama said no. Obama refused to approve it because Obama didn't put boots on the ground in Yemen, and we haven't had boots on the ground in Yemen since 2014. So, he looked at this, but he didn't approve it. But there is this mission. You could sign it and we could do it if you really wanted to do something to show that you were really tough on ISIS. And he did. He signed off on it on the 26th. Idiot boy, on the 27th, institutes a Muslim ban. And for those of you who take issue with Muslim ban, travel ban, okay, follow me. He institutes a travel ban and includes visa holders in Yemen who cooperated with us, just like the Iraqi visa holders. They got their visas because they cooperated with the United States military. They either served as spotters or translators or people that would run around and alert civilians to get out of the way. A drone strike was coming to minimize civilian casualties, and they kept their mouths shut, and they did the right thing by us, and so they got a visa to come here because if they stayed there, they'd get killed. So on the 26th, he signs off on this boots on the ground mission in Yemen. On the 27th, he issues a travel ban against Yemen and 6 other Muslim countries. You don't think anybody got pissed off in Yemen about that, do you? Oh, hell no. Then on the 28th, he goes ahead with this, and everything that can go wrong does go wrong because obviously they were waiting for our soldiers. They were waiting for our special forces. They knew they were coming. That's what a commander-in-chief we have. That's the caliber of idiocy that we have in that position. He's sitting at dinner with his son-in-law and an alt-right nationalist and one general, and he's probably, belligerent to Mattis, going, there's got to be something. There's got to be something we could do. There's got to be some operation. Well, there is this one. And he signs off at dinner. Now, I got to tell you, there are so many people who are, privy to this information after the fact who have been talking and saying, listen, let's make one thing clear. Obama never signed off on this mission because Obama did not want boots on the ground in Yemen and hasn't wanted boots on the ground in Yemen since 2014. There is no way. This was, something that was presented to him. He never signed off on it. He never approved it. He just said, leave the operation for the next administration and let them do all the research that would be necessary to find out if they wanted to, go through with this. He was president for 5 days. How much research could he have done into the perils of boots on the ground in Yemen? I say none. So I feel terrible for this woman. She obviously, and the idea that other presidents, Bush used to bring wounded warriors too, and, there's nothing new about that. And I just felt so bad for her. I felt so bad for her. She was in love with him. And, he must, just think about it. He had to be an exciting guy. They had kids. They were making a life. He was in his 40s. How much longer do you think he was going to stay out on these missions? You know what I mean? He was probably getting ready to retire, to come home. And then you get a president who's president for 5 days at a dinner party with his son-in-law and his white nationalist friends and a general. And he goes, give me something to sign off on. And this was it. It's just tragic. It's tragic. In 5 days, nobody could be, especially if you've never been in government before. You've never sat on an intelligence committee. You've never been briefed before. You never had an intelligence briefing. You just think you know more than the generals, and so you operate that way, and your arrogance gets 30 people killed. 30 people died. And you'll never know the names of the other people. 4 others were wounded, special operators. Obviously, we know Ryan Owen's name, which is really William, but he calls him Ryan. And his father, who is military, his father, who is ex-Navy also, and his brother, by the way, is also a Navy SEAL. They know that this couldn't possibly have been well researched. This couldn't have been well planned. This was not something to be executed upon 5 days into your presidency, especially not the day after you issue a travel ban from Yemen for people who were cooperating with the United States military. It just makes no sense. Then, this thing about American steel. Okay, I got to tell you. Oh, let me just tell you one other thing. He took credit for the lowered cost of the F-35. Yeah, the Pentagon had announced the cost reductions of $600 million way before Trump ever met anybody from Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin's chief executive officer, was the person that said that they could this thing has been fact checked for about a year now. It always gets 4 Pinocchios. It always says claim is false. It's never been true. It wasn't true last night. He lied about that. All right. Then he said, we've cleared the way for the construction of the Keystone and Dakota Access pipelines, thereby creating tens of thousands of jobs. And I've issued a new directive that new American pipelines be made with American steel. All right, let's go through the job numbers, the claims. He's obviously combining a couple of numbers. All right, he's been told 28,000 jobs for Keystone and 12,000 for Dakota Access. The actual number of Keystone construction jobs is actually 3,900. Not 28,000, but 3,900. And other jobs that have been created, like building the high-strength line pipe, those take advantage of people who already work, like in Arkansas, where they make this pipe. Except the company in Arkansas that makes this pipe is owned by an Indian company in India, and they use Indian steel. Yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. Now, the workers in Arkansas have already built about half of the high-strength line pipe needed for the project. They've built 333,000 tons of it. TransCanada said in 2013, 4 years ago, that it had already purchased all the steel pipe it needed for Keystone. So how is he sitting here saying, I just issued a directive that all the pipeline will be built with America? It's already been built. All of it's been built. TransCanada said every bit of steel that they need for these pipelines has already been built. They don't need any more for Keystone. And the steel that they used is Russian steel. It came from a Russian plant in Canada. Some of it came from Italy, and the rest came from India. The plant in Arkansas is owned by an Indian company, and it is the only one in the United States that could build the pipeline, and it gets its steel from India. What the hell did he have to lie about that for? Then he said, as we speak, we are removing gang members, drug dealers, and criminals that threaten our communities and prey on our citizens. Bad ones are going out as I speak. And I've promised that throughout the campaign. Okay. Well, he's referring to the recent arrests of undocumented immigrants convicted of crimes. Those are the bad ones. But Immigration and Customs Enforcement has always targeted the bad ones. The Obama administration made criminal deportation the highest priority, and Obama was known as the deporter in chief. Obama deported almost 2.5 million bad ones. The recent arrests, they include people who do not fall under the enforcement priorities under Obama. These are not the bad ones, like the drug dealers and the gang members. These are people with traffic violations. These are people with jaywalking violations, or these are people that ICE just happened to come across, and they decided that. Thank you. And they decided that they would arrest them too because they're undocumented. Now, either like I said, being here, overstaying your visa is not a crime. It's not a crime. We don't even track people who overstay their visa. We don't even know who the hell they are. So why does he have to lie about this? Why is he building in such divisive, race-based, rhetoric into every freaking thing he does? Why is Steve Bannon in the White House? Why do we have white nationalists all over? This Stephen Miller dude is one of them. Why? Why is he dividing this country by pouring salt on wounds that were just starting to heal? Why is he just taking like a rib splitter and opening up people's chests and making them bleed out with this hate speech that he does? Why? And then, we started with the immigration laws will raise, I can't even say it, raise wages. Now, we know that is just completely untrue.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. Trump is in the White House. Gold. Yes, gold. It really has the opportunity to do super well. That's definitely one good reason to own it. But did you know that there are a lot of benefits to owning gold? When you have gold in your physical possession, it provides safety. It's a hedge against inflation, U.S. dollar turmoil, and presidential instability. Gold has so much historical precedence as real money that the central banks that run the global financial system buy gold in staggering quantities year after year. Many financial service providers agree that gold is a great diversification tool for everyone's portfolio. If you want to learn more about the benefits of owning gold, just call my friends at ITM Trading at 1-888-OWN-GOLD. Whether you want to own physical gold in your possession or put some in your IRA, call ITM today at 1-888-OWN-GOLD. ITM specializes in all types of gold and silver coins and bars. Call ITM Trading. Get your free gold kit at 1-888-OWN-GOLD. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a diversified media enterprises production. I'm Doug Cunningham. About 25% of the Environmental Protection Agency's budget is being cut by Trump. Approximately 3,000 EPA jobs will be cut, going from 15,000 down to a staff of 12,000. John O'Grady is president of AFGE's National Council of EPA Locals, the largest union representing EPA workers.
Morale is in the basement, possibly lower. We're already at a point where we don't have enough staff to do everything that Congress has tasked us with. And to reduce the staff by another 3,000 is going to make it impossible for U.S. EPA to protect human health and the environment. They're going to cut climate change activities. They're going to cut waters of the United States. If you like to fish, if you like to just enjoy nature, that may impact your ability to have those enjoyments.
O'Grady says federal enforcement capacity and standards are also endangered by these cuts. That would lead to different environmental standards and enforcement by the states, rather than having a uniform national standard for environmental protection.
It's too easy for a plant manager to say to the governor, hey, look, get these guys off my back. I bring 10,000 jobs to this state. Do you want me to leave? And so what's the governor going to do? Is he going to say, no, that EPA regulation is going to stay in place? No, he's going to loosen it.
Instead of trying to improve EPA's environmental protection mission, the Trump administration is attacking, dismantling, dismantling and suppressing it. O'Grady says the bullying at EPA includes attacking AFGE, the largest union representing EPA workers.
Going after our dues deductions, automatic payroll deductions. They're doing a number of other things that will inhibit us from continuing to represent. That's the kind of thing that sends a chilling effect throughout the agency, so that people think, okay, you don't mess with these guys, I'll lose my job. I've got a family, I've got a house mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, people are keeping their heads down. There's no question we're under attack.
A coalition, including the National Consumers League, is launching a campaign urging consumers to close Wells Fargo bank accounts until forced arbitration requirements are dropped. Forced arbitration prevents consumers from taking Wells Fargo to court. The coalition says it's targeting Wells Fargo Bank over its illegal practices and to protect consumer rights to hold businesses accountable in court. National Consumers League Executive Director Sally Greenberg says her organization pulled money from Wells Fargo and instead put it in the Bank of Labor. She says the Bank of Labor has a very fair agreement for depositors with no forced arbitration clause.
Brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield National Labor Office, empowering working Americans with stable health coverage for over 50 years. The National Labor Office is committed to remaining the top choice for the 17 million union workers, retirees, and families they serve. Online at bcbs.com/NLO.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
All things Randy at randyrhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randy Rhodes Show.
All right, Judy in Pasadena.
Hi, Randy. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good. I wanted to say that I just loved your show last Friday so much. You were just on fire, and it was incredible. And you're so smart, and your ability to connect the dots is like nobody else's. Honestly, it's so good.
Well, thank you.
The one comment I wanted to make, because you were in the military, didn't it kind of, when he referred to this fallen soldier by his first name all the time, like he was a buddy or his friend, it just seemed like it was so lacking in decorum. And if you have all of those, chiefs of staff and all of his militaries just sitting there, and he's calling him Ryan, and I mean, isn't he supposed to be called?
Well, you know what's really disgusting about what he did? I mean, listen. What he did was, during the day, he blamed his generals. He said that my generals lost Ryan. They lost him. They botched the mission. It was their fault. And then last night, he stood there and he, pretended like he knew this guy. He cared about this guy. He had talked to this guy. This special operator, Ryan Owens, William Owens Jr., actually, there are photos of him playing with Obama's dogs, meaning Obama took time to meet these guys. Obama took time to understand what the intel was that these guys were gathering, what their lives were like, what their missions were, why they didn't want boots on the ground in after 2014. And the reason is because a civil war had broken out in Yemen, and it's a proxy war that Iran is conducting with these Houthi rebels. Do you think that Trump knows what a Houthi rebel is? Do you think he understands it's a proxy war? Do you think he knew who Ryan was? Listen, Obama knew who Ryan was. Obama had them to the White House. I mean, it was so sick the way he ingratiated himself into this family. And the family obviously is torn apart because the dad doesn't want to even talk to Donald Trump, meet him, shake his hand, or have anything to do with him. And his wife is just in the middle of the most horrendous period in grief that there is. And of course, I'm sure because she's a military wife, the invitation from the president, is something that she accepted graciously. And so, like I said, anybody that criticizes her or anybody that criticizes her showing up or the applause that she got is humanly deficient. But the idea that he started to make this guy into his personal buddy when truly this guy was a friend to Obama, who was known to Obama, who was in the White House, in the Oval Office, playing with the dogs on the floor, it's such misdirection.
And he was so cavalier about his decision to just put those lives up there on the line. And, he doesn't lose any sleep over it. I remember so much how Barack Obama said that was the hardest thing, was meeting these families who had lost their sons and daughters. And he just seems so, it's like he got exploited twice. He was killed in a foolish excursion and a decision that was made over dinner. And then his heartbroken, catatonic, completely absorbed in shock and grief. Like, he's just exploiting her for the applause line.
You know what? This is something that every politician does. I mean, there's nothing new about what Trump did last night. There's nothing new about inviting the families of fallen soldiers. I mean, it's been going on since we became a country at war, endless war, perpetual war, in 2002. So this has been going on a really long time. What really, the thing that's disgusting is not, that they, invited her, because this has been going on since, 2003, since the State of the Union 2003 and 4. What's disgusting is that he tried to make it so personal, and he has absolutely no idea of who this guy is, and yet the previous president does, and the previous president would not sign off on that mission. But this president, who was only president for 5 days, did. And now the kids...
Puts her next to his daughter. Like, oh, I'm going to get her to sit with Ivanka. Puts her right next to his daughter. And
well, that's again, this is nitpicking, because that's the presidential box, and that is where guests of honor go.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought I would like to have been the fly on the wall when the father expressed his, he's a man from the military, and he's got the 3 sons that all went into the military, and he did not want to shake the hands of this man. And I think she went to honor her husband.
I'm sure she did. Yeah, absolutely. And you got to remember, I mean, she's married to a Navy SEAL who has met a president of the United States, who has been to the White House, who has been on the floor in the Oval Office playing with dogs. And so if the president calls, you answer. This is a family that knew, President Obama. So of course she's going to accept, the invitation of the current president. I would have too. There's, and that's what I'm saying. If people don't understand the life of a military wife, especially of a Navy SEAL, then just don't comment on it. Gina in Phoenix. Gina in Phoenix. All right. Jolie in Ashburn, Virginia.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Jolie.
Thank you for taking the call. This is my first time.
Oh, wow. Hi.
I love your show.
Thank you.
I just want to make 2 comments. One of them, let's see how fast we won't be hearing anything about Benghazi anytime soon.
Well, this really ought to have been his Benghazi. And this attack, this budget of his, which nobody's really seen, but he promises to increase military spending by like $56 billion by defunding the State Department's consulates and embassy personnel. That's exactly what led to Benghazi, was the decrease in security for our foreign. Yeah. And he's proposing that we do away with a good chunk of the State Department. So we're gonna just bomb our way, out of into everything and out of everything. I don't understand. This man is he's so unable to make smart decisions about the use of force. Obviously, this thing here should be his Benghazi.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to reference also to the topic of the computer text that come from Southeast Asia. What's being hidden and not really being discussed because of fear of people being blacklisted. A lot of these texts that come from India and a lot of these other countries, when they come here, many of these texts are like the brightest. They're like the creme of the creme in their country. So when they come here and they work for a lot of these companies, not making that great money, what happens is the people that they work for, the companies that they work for, many of their higher-ups will steal a lot of their talent, take credit for the stuff that they've created and turn around and create their own businesses as consultants. profiting from the talents of others. But people are afraid to say anything because they don't want to be blacklisted.
Well, that's common. I mean, that happens to a lot of people where you go to work and they own your intellectual property. And so if you develop something or you create something, it doesn't belong to you.
I just think there's an edge of exploitation here somewhere. You might be right.
I'll show you where it is. I mean, the edge of the exploitation is in the fact that when they are first recruited in by these Indian firms, and they are predominantly Indian firms that recruit this way, they're told, go to America and, you'll make great money and it would be so good and you'll have a nice position using this awesome skill set that you've studied so hard to have. And then they get here and it's $25,000 a year. The cost of living is ridiculous and they can't complain because if they do complain, then of course their visas will be revoked by their employers and then they're stuck here. And also, in order to have a complaint adjudicated, you have to first get a grand jury indictment, and then it goes to the Justice Department for prosecution. Now, you know how long that takes, and nobody's going to do it.
No one can do that.
So that's where the exploitation comes. But what's really amazing is Americans believe that it's people below them that are causing them not to be able to have the kind of life that they thought that they could have. And it's really not people below them. It's corporate interests that are above them, that are outsmarting them, outgaming them, have more contacts with the State Department, have more contacts with visa issuers, have more contacts with foreign countries, have more contacts with foreign schools, can recruit the cream of the top of the crop from Southeast Asia, from India, from Pakistan, from all these places where their parents tell them every day, you better study and you better study. I want to see your homework 6 hours, 8 hours a day, blah, blah. And these kids go all the way. Here, we barely have high school graduation rates. I mean, we're like 24th in math and science, and of course we have 5 million open jobs that Americans can't fill, but Americans want to blame some person who's fleeing violence in Honduras.
Yeah, and with Betty DeVos is not going to make it any better either. So
no, her goal is to defund public schools and take all that education money and put it into for-profit charter schools. That's why they put this girl Denisha Merriweather up last night. But if you notice, Denisha Merriweather was wearing white. She is not a Republican. She is a person who wanted to go to school so badly. She got a scholarship from corporate America. They, in exchange for a tax break, corporate America decided that they would sponsor kids to go to schools that best suited them and give them scholarships to colleges. So these kids knew they could afford college. They knew they were going, and that's how she succeeded. I mean, it's just a ridiculous. The whole thing was a lie last night.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit randyrhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Buy a stinking podcast.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
On Tuesday night, the 45th President of the United States delivered his first speech to a joint session of Congress. It wasn't officially a State of the Union, as the first one delivered by a president never is, but this was not the place for exaggerations or untruths. And although no Democrat in the chamber shouted at the new president, as Republican Representative Joe Wilson did to President Obama in 2009, Trump's maiden turn at that podium did include some false claims. So, with an assist from the Washington Post's fact checkers, here are some of the... Yeah.
We have begun to drain the swamp of government corruption by imposing a 5-year ban on lobbying by executive branch officials and a lifetime ban on becoming lobbyists for a foreign government.
Trump did sign an order that he said would result in a lifetime ban on administration officials lobbying for foreign governments. But his 5-year ban on lobbying doesn't extend to congressional officials, as he originally promised, and it applies only to lobbying one's former agency, not becoming a lobbyist. Trump actually weakened some of the language from similar bans under Obama and W and reduced the level of transparency.
We've defended the borders of other nations while leaving our own borders wide open for anyone to cross and for drugs to pour in at a now unprecedented rate.
No. The amount of marijuana seized at the border continues to decline, as does the amount of cocaine, although heroin and methamphetamine seizures have increased in recent years. Meanwhile, illegal immigration flows across the southern border in 2015 were at the lowest level since 1972, except for 2011.
We've saved taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars by bringing down the price of fantastic, and it is a fantastic, new F-35 jet fighter. And we'll be saving billions more on contracts all across our government.
Trump once again takes credit for the lowered cost of the F-35 program. The Pentagon had announced cost reductions of roughly $600 million before Trump began meeting with Lockheed Martin's chief executive. Sometimes Trump says he saved $600 million, other times $700 million. What's $100 million among friends? The Washington Post has previously awarded 4 Pinocchios to this claim, yet he claimed it again.
America has spent approximately $6 trillion in the Middle East. All the while, our infrastructure at home is crumbling. With this $6 trillion, we could have rebuilt our country twice.
Trump often incorrectly claims that the U.S. spent $6 trillion on the wars in the Middle East, and here he uses it in a particularly misleading way. The wars in Iraq, in the Middle East, and Afghanistan in South Asia together cost about $1.6 trillion from 2001 to 2014. The $6 trillion figure adds in estimates of future spending, such as interest on the debt and veterans care for the next 3 decades. Trump says that this money, not yet spent, could have rebuilt the U.S. economy.
Go back to the house. I hear the woman smile. Preaching on, tell me that I'm lying about a job.
We have cleared the way for the construction of the Keystone and Dakota Access pipelines, thereby creating tens of thousands of jobs. And I've issued a new directive that new American pipelines be made with American steel.
Yeah, a 2014 State Department environmental review estimated the Keystone would support 42,000 temporary jobs over its 2-year construction period, about 3,900 of them in construction, the rest in indirect support jobs, such as food service. It's estimated the Keystone would create about 35 permanent jobs. As for the steel, TransCanada said in 2013 that it had already purchased all of the steel pipe it needed for the Keystone XL, with the rest coming from a Russian-owned plant in Canada, Italy, and India. Experts say the plant in Arkansas is the only one in the U.S. that could build the pipe, and it gets its steel from India. In all fairness, Trump did start off the speech on the right note, saying what he should have said many times during his first tumultuous month in office. That's about time.
Tonight, as we mark the conclusion of our celebration of Black History Month, we are reminded of our nation's path toward civil rights and the work that still remains to be done. Recent threats targeting Jewish community centers and vandalism of Jewish cemeteries, as well as last week's shooting in Kansas City, remind us that while we may be a nation divided on policies, we are a country that stands united in condemning hate and evil in all of its very ugly forms.
And that's today's dose of Nicole Sandler's What's News. Hear Nicole's show Tuesday through Friday from 3 to 4 Eastern at NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
I have to pee.
Yet President Trump is ignoring serious threats to our national security from Russia, who's not our friend, while alienating our allies who fought with us side by side and are our friends in a dangerous world. His approach makes us less safe and should worry every freedom-loving American. Instead, President Trump has all but declared war on refugees and immigrants. Look, the president can and should enforce our immigration laws, but we can protect America without abandoning our principles and our moral obligation to help those fleeing war and terror, without tearing families apart, and without needlessly jeopardizing our military men and women fighting overseas. You know, another Republican president, Ronald Reagan, once said, "In America, our origins matter less than our destination." And that is what democracy is all about. President Trump also needs to understand that people may disagree with him from time to time, but that doesn't make them his enemies. When the president attacks the loyalty and credibility of our intelligence agencies, the court system, the military, the free press, individual Americans, simply because he doesn't like what they say, he's eroding our democracy, and that's reckless.
That was the response from the former governor of Kentucky, Governor Beshear, who did expand Medicaid and implemented, Kentucky Connect, and Connect, I think they called it with a KY, you know, like the jelly. And it worked. And, you know, you have 40,000 people with health care now in Kentucky that didn't have it before. And, you know, I watched these pundits and I watched the media last night, and they're like, watching him give the response. And they're criticizing everything that he did. You know, why was he sitting in a diner? And those people looked like they were at a funeral. And I don't understand why there was no movement. And he's so old. And the millennials won't respond to him. And when are we going to get hip with the millennials and all that? And I'm thinking to myself, everything he just said was so on point, and you're the ones that can't get past the fact that he's a retired governor who did a really great job of implementing Obamacare in his state. It was like really sad because he's a good guy. He really is. I think we interviewed him, when he was first expanding Medicaid in Kentucky and setting up the Kentucky Connect thing that worked really well. Really well. And then another response, and this is why we went, we started late, so we're going to, stay late tonight. But Bernie Sanders was also on Facebook last night, and he gave a response. His response was insanely good, too. And there was nary the cover. I mean, I didn't see anybody covering it. I just was sitting there tweeting, and man, I got some retweets from some very famous people last night, I have to say. I was like, wow, didn't even know that they followed me or knew that I was alive. But I got retweeted by Sarah Silverman. Deborah Messing retweeted me. I do actually tweet with Morgan Fairchild every once in a while, but I'm aware of her. I know she's there. She's a political junkie, Morgan is.
Even Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill loves and retweets your stuff all the time.
I know. It's amazing. It's just, and who used to follow me was Jason Alexander. And then as soon as we started the Kickstarter, I hit him up for a couple of bucks, disappeared. Boo! Never heard from him again. Ever, never. And then all of a sudden I get like a tweet from him, or I see he's back on Twitter or something like that. And I go, gee, where you been? Missed you, glad to see you're alive. And I get a like. He's probably afraid I'm going to say support the show. God forbid he should reach into his pocket and give me a shekel. You know what I mean? But anyway, so last night I was the thing that people really were upset about was Denisha Merriweather. They didn't understand, like how he could, because he's promoting Betsy DeVos's defund the public school, take the public school money and put it, give the parents that voucher and let the parents then go to a for-profit charter school that, fails kids miserably and doesn't have any standards or reporting, and you don't know if your kids are reading on grade level, and of course her family runs a student loan company, all this stuff. So I tweeted out a nice picture of Denisha Merriweather last night, and I said, boy, she did really well under Obama, didn't she? Because she went all the way in school. People, were fighting with me and screaming at me and all that. And then, of course, I got starstruck because I saw famous people retweeting me. But anyway, so I was on my phone trying to fact check in real time, which was really easy because Trump doesn't tell new lies. He tells the same lies over and over and over again. Like 95 million Americans are unemployed. 95 million Americans are unemployed. That was one of the biggest. I mean, how could he get away with? I don't even know. And no one fact. You know what? They were even Van Jones. Van. Oh, he sounded so presidential. That's because the bar for him is so low that because he honored, a fallen hero's wife, all of a sudden, oh, you can't say anything. Oh, you can't say anything. It's like the word cancer. It's like. You have to whisper it or else it'll come into your house. Well, yesterday with Comcast, we had a meeting with Comcast. We shouldn't have said that we have good luck with Comcast because then all of a sudden today, no, Comcast. It's the new C word. But anyway, so I'm on my phone and Bernie Sanders is doing his response, So I posted on my Facebook page for people to follow, It was fantastic. Oh, what happened here? Oh, Comcast,
Oh, is that from Facebook?
Yeah.
Unmute the tab at the top.
You muted it?
Well, because it kept dinging when people were messaging you.
Oh, well, I knew what the ding was.
Just unmute.
What is more important is what somebody does not say as opposed to what they actually say. Some examples. At a time when over half of older Americans have no retirement savings, I did not hear President Trump say one word, not one word, about Social Security or Medicare. During the campaign, as we all remember, President Trump promised over and over and over again that he would not cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. It was a cornerstone of his campaign. But in his first address to the nation, he didn't even mention Social Security or Medicare once, not a single time. Even worse, President Trump has proposed a massive cut to Medicaid, massive cut, threatening the nursing home care of millions of senior citizens and the health care of many, many of our children. I urge President Trump, keep your promises. Tell the American people, tweet to the American people that you will not cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
This is where we're at now. We have a president who, in 5 days, he's learned all the complexities of the Middle East, Yemen. He knows whether or not to put boots on the ground and to deploy special ops and to, and he also, the president has also figured out, that he could raise the military spending of this country and sacrifice education, innovation, environmental protection, Medicaid, repeal Obamacare. He knows all this now. I mean, he's been president for, what did he say? Last he goes, I've been president for almost 5 weeks now. I got this. I know more about this than you do. It's very twisted. It's very sick. But there was so much about that last night that was just the refurbished lies that I was very surprised, very, very surprised to hear the people who usually hold the president to account, and say things like, that's not true, or this didn't happen, or those facts are wrong, or let me show you the numbers and let's walk you through that. You know, they would say he sounded very presidential because the bar for this man is so freaking low. And it was very easy to fact check him in real time, I'm telling you, because he tells the same old lies. There are no new lies, you know, and the 95 million Americans one that are unemployed. Do you know what our unemployment rate would be? There's figure 330 million Americans. So 95 rounded up to 100 million Americans are unemployed. We would have 33% unemployment. I mean, this would make the Great Depression look stupid if that were true. And yet people can't do simple math in their head and go, how is it possible that almost 100 million Americans are unemployed? Well, it is impossible. The unemployment rate is 4.8%, not 33%. 7 million Americans are currently looking for jobs that want jobs and don't have jobs. That 95 million number is everyone over the age of 12. That includes kids in school over the age of 16. I mean, not 12, 16. It's 16 and up. So it includes everyone who's in school at the age of 16. It includes college students. It includes retirees. It includes people who are on pensions. It includes people that don't need to work, don't want to work, stay-at-home moms. It includes an entire population of people that aren't interested in working for whatever their reason is. And most of those people are either in school as young people over the age of 16 or old people who are retired. I mean, these lies are just, but the media last night, well, he was very presidential, and I have to say, meanwhile, he didn't discuss any of the hows or how, you know, or whys or wherefore. It was just another divisive speech that was pitting 95 million Americans supposedly that can't find work in this great country of ours, with brown people who aren't taking those jobs away from them, and I mean, the whole thing was so racist. It was unfreaking believable. It was unbelievable. So, I mean, I was really shocked. He sounded very presidential.
Further, I did not hear President Trump tonight mention the words income and wealth inequality, or the fact that we now have the widest gap between the very rich and everyone else since the 1920s. I did not hear President Trump mention the fact that as a result of the disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, a 5-4 decision, we now have a corrupt campaign finance system that is allowing billionaires to buy elections and undermine American democracy. How could you give a speech to the nation and not talk about that enormously important issue? Furthermore, not only did President Trump not mention the issue of voter suppression, what Republican governors are doing all over this country to make it harder for people to participate in our democracy, but the truth of the matter is his administration is now working overtime with Republican governors to make it harder for young people, low-income people, senior citizens, and people of color to vote. That is an outrage. Perhaps most astoundingly, at a time when the scientific community is virtually unanimous in telling us that climate change is real, that it is caused by human activity, that it is already causing devastating problems in our country and all over the world, I did not hear President Trump say one word, not one word, about the need to combat climate change, the greatest environmental threat facing our planet.
Can you imagine if he were our president? I mean, Donald Trump hasn't developed one single piece of legislation. You understand this. There's not been one single piece of legislation. And why is that important? Well, it's important because you can't, you can't be president with executive orders only. Look what happened with this travel ban. And why hasn't he introduced the new one? Where's the new one? I'll see you in court, he said. Although they were already in court and they saw him and they said no. But he keeps saying, I'll see you in court. I'll see it. Where is his new travel ban? Now they're talking about, we'll leave Iraq out of it. Maybe we'll leave Iraq out. So we'll get 1/7 less racism in the new travel ban. Yay, good for us. 1/7 less racism from Donald Trump. This, to the media, is presidential. Were you watching him with the sound off? Is that what happened? Did you not hear all these lies? Listen, I understand that they call it a success when he lies convincingly, but I didn't find that a convincing lie last night. It was the same old rehashed, rebutted, debunked, four Pinocchios, false claim, Snopes, PolitiFact, Washington Post, lies, same ones over and over and over again. I couldn't even believe it. It's like a guy at his parole hearing. You know, you forget what he's saying, but you just say, well, he cleans up nice. But look what he's done. He's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing. He hasn't done one damn thing, not one piece of legislation. Now, it's important that we get legislation because legislation costs money. And you've got to score that. Not that we'll get a decent, result out of the Congressional Budget Office because he's put, some Tea Party, person, Mulvaney, as head of the Budget Office. So, I don't know what's going to happen. But the crazy part is the Republicans aren't even on board with anything that he said last night. The Republicans aren't on board with him increasing defense spending and decreasing the State Department. All the Republicans want is to repeal Obamacare. Why? Because they have big pharma contributing to them, and that's another thing he said last night. That big pharma is getting away with, I don't know how he phrased it, getting away with murder, or that we have to. This was a Republican idea not to negotiate the price down for pharmaceutical drugs for Obamacare. We do this for the VA, we do this for TRICARE, but they don't do it for, people on the exchange. Well, why would that be? Because pharma lobbied not to have a negotiation on the price of drugs. The Republicans love that idea. They love that pharmaceuticals are through the roof. I mean, the guy who's now in charge of Health and Human Services, Tom Price, made all his money investing in pharmaceutical companies that he legislated would not negotiate down the price of their drugs. He made money while he was introducing legislation to protect them. I mean, and then Trump picks him to head up health and do you see how bizarre this whole scenario? Now, if Bernie Sanders was our president, I promise you by now, we would have had a fix for Obamacare written down. It probably would have said single payer or Medicare for all. We wouldn't need money going to the VA because everyone would have health care. We wouldn't need money going to Medicaid because everyone would have health care. We wouldn't need money going to Medicare, to the trust fund, because everyone would have health care. Can you imagine how much money would be saved if everyone in this country bought into one single payer system? And the single payer would be, just like it is in Medicare, the government. And then we could go out and private insurers could either go write home policies or automobile policies or whatever they want, and supplemental health insurance policies, so that everyone would be covered with the same standard of care that you already have now that you have Obamacare. No pre-existing conditions can keep you out. Oh, and be forewarned. They keep saying you'll have access to coverage for pre-existing conditions. That doesn't mean that the insurance policies have to accept people with pre-existing conditions. That just means there will be an insurer or maybe two insurers who take people with pre-existing conditions, and they will charge you 8 times what you're already paying now, which for me is I pay so much for my Obamacare. I mean, I pay so much for it, but I've chosen that big plan because I need it. So I chose it for myself. But honest to God, man, can you imagine how much money we would save? So now you don't need Medicaid. Now you don't need Medicare. Now you don't need the VA. You don't need TRICARE. You have one single. Now, you want a plan that allows you to go wherever you want in the world, like you go to Dubai, who are constantly advertising on the TV that I should go to the Dubai Health Center. I want a coverage that covers me to go there, and airfare to go there, and I get to stay in a hotel to recover there. Fine. Buy private health insurance from, one of these golden parachute companies, whatever it is. But if Bernie was president right now, oh my God, we were like doing so well with renewable fuels and renewable energy. And what does the president do? He buddies up to oil and gas Russia. He puts ExxonMobil in charge of the State Department. The State Department and then is going to destroy the Environmental Protection Agency and deny that renewable energy is a great industry for America. Meanwhile, you read articles, China is now surpassing us in renewables. And we were at the forefront of renewables. I mean, this is just a very, very sick presidency. And how anybody could say that he looked president, I don't know what you were watching. I don't know, how low the bar is. The classic moment was Donald Trump calling for an end to trivial fights. Is he going to apologize to Meryl Streep? Or Rosie O'Donnell? Or Alec Baldwin? Or Saturday Night Live? Or Lauren Michaels? Or CNN? Is he going to apologize to, Kurt Eichenwald? Is he going to apologize to any journalist, Jim Sciutto, who he yelled at and said, no, you're fake news? Is he going to? Because those are the trivial things. His tweets are the trivial things. So he says, this is the end. Really? And they say he was presidential. You saw how proud he was when he used what was it? Islamic extremism. Radical Islamic. He was so proud of himself. And there again, you have his generals, his national security advisor, who he just hired, came out and said, "Don't use that phrase. It increases." The amount of it decreases the cooperation we can get, and we need that cooperation from Muslim countries. Everything you're doing so far, this travel ban was wrong, especially the day before you attacked Yemen, to issue a travel ban in Yemen. So stop using that word. And he stood up there last night and he said it out loud: radical Islamic extreme. And then he tugged his coat, like, "Look, Daddy, I'm doing it." What a bunch of bullcrap. I mean, I honestly, in my whole life, I've never seen, a dog and pony show like that one last night. But simply because they didn't say lock her up, or simply because he didn't say fake news, or simply because he didn't insult somebody, because he didn't, say you're fake or you're the... He laid out absolutely no plans for anything, none whatsoever. And, this is not a State of the Union. This is the joint sessions. The first year is always the joint session because you haven't done anything. So what you're supposed to use it for is to lay out your plans, what you want to do, how you're going to do it, which promises you made on the campaign trail you're going to keep. Seems to me the only promise that he said he was going to keep, and yet he still doesn't tell us how, is we're going to build a magnificent, big, beautiful wall. And $1 trillion worth of infrastructure spending, $54 billion, $500 billion increase in defense spending, and somehow he's going to lower taxes and reduce the debt. Oh my God. But the media said he was presidential. Yeah, like Nixon with OCD, maybe. He just can't stop telling the same lies over and over and over again and expecting a different result. But that was not presidential.